Imagine waking up in a world that is both familiar and utterly alien. The air is thick with the scent of wildflowers and ancient forests, but the landscape is dominated by towering mountains, vast rivers, and endless plains teeming with life. This is the world before the Great Flood, a time described in ancient texts as the antediluvian era, when the earth was young and humanity was not alone. In this primordial age, the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural were blurred. According to the book of Genesis and other ancient sources, the sons of God descended to earth and took human wives, giving rise to a race of giants known as the Nephilim. These beings were said to possess extraordinary strength, intelligence, and lifespans that dwarfed those of ordinary humans. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown, but also the source of great terror and chaos. The world of the Nephilim was a place of extremes. The climate was warmer, the vegetation more lush, and the animals far larger and more dangerous than anything we know today. Saber-toothed cats, giant sloths, and mammoths roamed the land, while enormous birds of prey circled overhead. Humanity was a small, vulnerable species, struggling to survive in a world dominated by forces beyond its control. But it was not just the environment that posed a threat. The Nephilim themselves were a constant danger. Described as giants, warriors, and even kings, they ruled over human settlements with an iron fist. Their appetites were legendary, and their tempers even more so. To cross a Nephilim was to invite disaster, and few survived such encounters. The ancient world was also a place of advanced knowledge and technology, much of it attributed to the Watchers, the fallen angels who taught humanity the secrets of metalworking, agriculture, and even sorcery. This knowledge, while powerful, came at a price. The balance of nature was disrupted, and the line between good and evil became increasingly blurred. For a modern human, surviving even a single day in this world would be a monumental challenge. The dangers were everywhere, and the rules of survival were unlike anything we know today. To understand why, we must delve deeper into the world of the Nephilim, their origins, their powers, and the impact they had on the course of human history. As we journey back in time, we must ask ourselves, what would it take to survive 24 hours in the age of the Nephilim? The answer, as we will see, is far more complex and terrifying than we might imagine. The Nephilim are among the most enigmatic and controversial figures in ancient history. Their story begins in the book of Genesis, where they are described as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. But who were these beings? And what made them so formidable? According to the ancient texts, the Nephilim were giants, literally and figuratively. They stood head and shoulders above ordinary humans, with some accounts describing them as being over 20 feet tall. Their strength was legendary, capable of uprooting trees, moving massive stones, and defeating entire armies single-handedly. But their power was not limited to physical might. The Nephilim were also said to possess advanced knowledge, inherited from their angelic fathers, which they used to dominate and manipulate the world around them. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text excluded from most modern Bibles, provides a detailed account of the Nephilim and their origins. According to Enoch, a group of 200 angels known as the Watchers descended to earth and took human wives. Their offspring, the Nephilim, quickly became a scourge upon the earth, consuming all the resources and spreading violence wherever they went. The Nephilim were not just warriors, they were rulers, kings, and even gods in the eyes of the people. They built massive cities, constructed megalithic monuments, and established dynasties that lasted for generations. Their influence can be seen in the legends of ancient Sumer, Egypt, and even the Americas, where stories of giants and demigods abound. But the Nephilim were also deeply flawed. Their appetites were insatiable and their tempers uncontrollable. They demanded tribute from the people, often in the form of food, gold, or even human lives. Those who resisted were crushed without mercy. The Nephilim's reign was marked by chaos, destruction, and a growing sense of dread among the human population. For a modern human, encountering a Nephilim would be a nightmare. Their sheer size and strength would make any form of resistance futile. Even the most advanced weapons of today would be of little use against beings who could shrug off arrows, spears, and even swords. The Nephilim's intelligence and cunning would make them formidable adversaries, capable of outwitting and overpowering any would-be challenger. But the Nephilim were not invincible. Their very existence was a violation of the natural order, and their actions would ultimately lead to their downfall. As we will see, the age of the Nephilim was a time of great upheaval, a world on the brink of destruction, where survival was a daily struggle and the future of humanity hung in the balance. Surviving in the age of the Nephilim was not just a matter of avoiding giants. The antediluvian world was a place of constant danger, where every day brought new threats and challenges. For a modern human, the risks would be overwhelming. The environment itself was a formidable adversary. The climate was unpredictable, with sudden storms, floods, and droughts capable of wiping out entire communities. The land was covered in dense forests, treacherous swamps, and vast deserts, each home to its own array of deadly creatures. Giant reptiles, saber-toothed cats, and massive birds of prey roamed the land, while venomous snakes and insects lurked in the shadows. Disease was another constant threat. Without modern medicine, even a minor injury or infection could prove fatal. The Nephilim, with their advanced knowledge, may have possessed some remedies, but for ordinary humans, illness was a daily reality. Plagues could sweep through villages, decimating populations and leaving survivors weak and vulnerable. But perhaps the greatest danger came from other humans. The age of the Nephilim was a time of violence and chaos, where might made right and the strong preyed upon the weak. Banditry, slavery, and warfare were commonplace, and trust was a rare commodity. The Nephilim themselves were often at war with one another, their battles leaving devastation in their wake. For a modern human, the lack of technology would be a significant handicap. There were no antibiotics, no firearms, no reliable means of communication or transportation. Survival depended on physical strength, cunning, and the ability to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. Even basic necessities like clean water, food, and shelter were hard-won and easily lost. The psychological toll of living in such a world would be immense. The constant threat of violence, the unpredictability of nature, and the ever-present fear of the Nephilim would wear down even the strongest individual. In a society where life was cheap and death was always near, hope was a precious and fragile thing. Yet, despite these challenges, humanity endured. The antediluvian world was a crucible, forging the resilience and ingenuity that would one day allow our ancestors to survive the Great Flood and rebuild civilization. But for a modern human, accustomed to comfort and security, surviving even 24 hours in this world would be a test of endurance, courage, and luck. The age of the Nephilim was not just a time of physical danger. It was also an era of forbidden knowledge and moral corruption. According to ancient texts, the Watchers, the fallen angels who fathered the Nephilim, brought with them secrets that changed the course of human history. The Book of Enoch describes how the Watchers taught humanity the arts of metalworking, weapon-making, and jewelry. They revealed the secrets of agriculture, astrology, and even the use of cosmetics and enchantments. This knowledge, while powerful, was not given freely. It came with a price, a loss of innocence and a growing sense of alienation from the natural world. The introduction of advanced technology disrupted the balance of society. Weapons became more deadly, wars more frequent, and the gap between the powerful and the powerless grew ever wider. The Nephilim, with their superior strength and knowledge, used these tools to cement their dominance over humanity. The Watchers themselves became objects of worship, their teachings twisted into dark rituals and forbidden practices. The corruption of mankind was not just physical, but spiritual. The ancient texts speak of a world where violence, greed, and lust were rampant. The Nephilim and their followers engaged in acts of cruelty and depravity, defying the laws of nature and the will of the Creator. The earth itself was said to cry out under the weight of their sins, and the balance of creation was threatened. For a modern human, the allure of forbidden knowledge would be both a blessing and a curse. The temptation to use advanced technology for personal gain would be strong, but the consequences could be catastrophic. The moral dilemmas faced by the people of the antediluvian world are not so different from those we face today. Questions of power, responsibility, and the limits of human ambition. The age of the Nephilim serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that knowledge without wisdom can lead to destruction. The Watchers' gifts, while impressive, ultimately brought about the downfall of their own children and the world they sought to control. The corruption of mankind set the stage for the Great Flood, a cataclysm that would wipe the slate clean and offer humanity a chance to begin anew. The age of the Nephilim could not last forever. According to ancient texts, the violence and corruption of the antediluvian world reached a tipping point, and the Creator decided to intervene. The result was the Great Flood, a cataclysmic event that would reshape the earth and bring an end to the reign of the Nephilim. The story of the flood is found in many cultures, from the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia to the biblical account of Noah. In each version, the message is clear. The world had become so corrupt, so filled with violence and injustice that only a complete reset could restore balance. The Nephilim, with their insatiable appetites and disregard for the natural order, were seen as the primary cause of this destruction. The flood was not just a physical disaster, it was a test of survival. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rains fell and the waters rose, covering even the highest mountains. The Nephilim, despite their strength and cunning, could not escape the judgment that had been decreed. Their cities were swallowed by the sea, their monuments reduced to rubble, and their memory consigned to legend. For the survivors, the world after the flood was a place of uncertainty and loss. The old ways were gone, and humanity was forced to start anew. The knowledge of the Watchers was lost or hidden, and the age of giants came to an end. The survivors carried with them the lessons of the past, a deep respect for the power of nature, a wariness of forbidden knowledge, and a determination to avoid the mistakes that had led to the destruction of the world. For a modern human, surviving the flood would be nearly impossible. The sheer scale of the disaster, the loss of infrastructure, and the psychological trauma would test even the most resilient individual. The flood serves as a reminder of the fragility of civilization and the importance of humility in the face of forces beyond our control. The end of the Nephilim marked the beginning of a new era, a time when humanity would have to find its own way, free from the influence of giants and fallen angels. But the memory of the antediluvian world, and the lessons it holds, would continue to shape the course of history for generations to come. The story of the Nephilim did not end with the flood. Their legacy lives on in the myths, legends, and mysteries that continue to captivate the human imagination. From the ruins of ancient cities to the tales of giants and heroes, the age of the Nephilim remains a source of fascination and debate. In the centuries that followed the flood, stories of giants persisted in cultures around the world. The Greeks spoke of the Titans, the Norse of the Jotnar, and the Celts of the Fomorians. In the Americas, legends of giant beings can be found among the native peoples, while in Africa and Asia, similar tales abound. These stories, while varied in detail, share a common theme: the memory of a time when humanity was not alone, when beings of immense power walked the earth. Archaeologists and historians have searched for evidence of the Nephilim, uncovering massive bones, megalithic structures, and ancient texts that hint at a lost world. While mainstream science remains skeptical, the allure of the mystery endures. The Nephilim have become a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that there are still secrets waiting to be uncovered. For many, the story of the Nephilim is more than just a legend. It is a reflection of the human condition. The struggle between good and evil, the temptation of forbidden knowledge, and the consequences of hubris are themes that resonate across time and culture. The age of the Nephilim serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of humility. But the legacy of the Nephilim is also one of hope. The survivors of the flood, though few in number, carried with them the seeds of a new beginning. They rebuilt, adapted, and learned from the mistakes of the past. The resilience and ingenuity that allowed humanity to survive the age of giants continue to define us today. As we look back on the world of the Nephilim, we are reminded of the fragility of civilization and the power of myth to shape our understanding of the past. The question remains, could we survive 24 hours in their world? The answer, perhaps, lies not in our strength or knowledge, but in our ability to learn, adapt, and endure. The age of the Nephilim may be lost to history, but its lessons remain. In the end, it is not the giants who endure, but the spirit of humanity, a spirit that refuses to be extinguished, no matter how great the odds.